Nancy and I have been best friends since we were in high school, up until recently have never had any issues between us. We went to the same university together. After graduating college we were both 23-year-old single professionals, and we were in the thick of the dating and hookup scene in New York. We were both making our money, but the rent here is so expensive, and after upkeep, shopping, and paying student loans it is hard to find any disposable income. So, we would have guys take us on dates at expensive restaurants and places we couldn't afford, so it's a win-win. Nancy was much better at it, more than me. She is really pretty. She was prettier than me because I noticed how guys pick her over me. I even met my soon-to-be fiancé Brandon because he had a crush on her first. Before I came into the picture, Brandon had his sights set on Nancy. He had been so relentless in his pursuit of her, but Nancy was not interested in him. Nancy told me, "He is not my type. You know, I like them rich." I hadn't met Brandon then, so I didn't give her disinterest in him much thought. One Friday night during the summer, Nancy called me. "What are you doing tonight?" "Wait, I know. We are going to Paradise Club. You are going out with me, so get ready." So, we made plans to go out and have some fun. I'd wanted to know how we were going to handle the bills of our outing, but Nancy said, "Don't worry about money. I've invited Brandon. He's going to handle all the costs tonight. Ours is to eat, drink, and enjoy the night." I knew about her disinterest in Brandon, so I didn't feel right about taking advantage of him, but we were both broke. What can a broke girl do to have a good night? I went along with her plan. That was the day I met him for the first time. He showed up thinking he had a chance with her, but while at a pub having fun, Nancy openly flirted with a random guy who was also at the pub. I felt really bad for him and a little mad at her for being so inconsiderate. As for Brandon, his anger was too big to be hidden. At some point he wanted us to leave the pub without Nancy. I had to calm him down because I wasn't ready to go anywhere with him without Nancy. When we were done and going home, Brandon decided to have the last word. He ranted about his displeasure while calling on Nancy never to repeat that again. It was supposed to be a good night for us, but ended the night in a sour mood. Nancy's house was the closest, so he dropped her off first. Then he offered to take me home. We had a little talk on our way, and he asked me, "Can we be friends?" I said, "Why not?" We exchanged contacts. Later that night we spoke on the phone. It felt nice talking to him. He seemed like a good guy. Things picked up after that. A few days after we met, I visited him at his house. We talked and watched movies. He was a complete gentleman. He didn't try anything inappropriate on me, and this made me warm up to him. The next time we met he said, "I like you, Steph. Will you be my girlfriend?" I answered, "I'm sorry, but I can't. Let's just be friends." I didn't believe that he wanted to be with me for the right reasons. I felt he wanted to use me to get back at my friend. To prove that he was serious about me, he kept coming and refused to accept my no as an answer. He would call me and say all the right things to make my head spin and my heartbeat at an unusual rate. During one of his sweet talks, he asked me, "Do you keep turning me down because I am not your type?" I told him, "My type is a man who loves me and is willing to take care of me." He said, "I'm that kind of man, so why don't you give me a chance?" I had grown to like him, but I couldn't accept him without talking to Nancy about it. One day I told Nancy that I'd been talking to Brandon. She said, "Oh, he is a nice guy. Date him if you are interested in him." She assured me that she did not like him romantically and I was free to be with him. This made me feel secure enough to finally accept his proposal. I told him, "Yes, I will be your girlfriend, but you should know about the rules I have." He asked, "What is it?" I answered, "There will be no sex in this relationship until we are married." He said, "That's fine with me." We were on the same page. What could go wrong? Nancy wanted to take advantage of our relationship to ask for favors for herself, but I did not allow it. I protected what we had the way a soldier would protect his country. In doing so I left myself open to the hanging emotions surrounding our relationship. A few months after saying yes to him, we broke the rule. We did the thing.
Yeah,
Things were very intense between us, so it didn't surprise me that it happened. I saw it coming but didn't do enough to prevent it from happening. If anything, I plunged into it. After it happened, we had a conversation about it. I told him my fears. My ex wanted us to be intimate, but I wasn't ready. Then he cheated on me with his ex that ruined us. Now that we have done this, I don't want our relationship to be centered around it. We can still have a meaningful relationship with this in the mix. He nodded in agreement with everything I said. Again, we were on the same page. Brandon and I were inseparable. I started losing interest in going out because I thought I have found the one. One evening Nancy called me. She asks me if we are still friends, and I said of course, and she wanted to know why I don't go out anymore, and if it was because of that loser Brandon. I told her that Brandon is not a loser, and he is my boyfriend and I love him. She said that I could do better. She guilted me into going on a film festival with her. She said she had a private ticket, and many celebrities would be there. I couldn't refuse that opportunity. When we went to the film festival, the who is who in sports were there, mostly baseball and some movie actors. After the party that evening, we were invited to the after party. A minor league baseball player took a liking to Nancy. He was just the guy of her dream. He was an up-and-coming baseball star and Nancy was all over him. He was tall and rich, so he was perfect. I also gave my number to an actor. He called me that night to come to his hotel, but I turned him down, something I wouldn't normally do if I wasn't with Brandon. When I told Nancy about that, she thought I was stupid. Weeks later Nancy started dating the baseball player in secret because he had a wife. Nancy wasn't worried about it because he told Nancy that he wasn't happy with his wife, and he is going to break up with her before he gets any major contract. He was paying most of Nancy's bills and her rent, so it was a win-win for her. After Nancy started dating the married baseball player, she stopped inviting me out. She started going to film festivals, horse racing, and private parties with rich people. Soon she wasn't only seeing just the married baseball player, she was also sleeping with a 40-something-year-old banker from Wall Street. Few months later Nancy quit her job and was just traveling around the world and posting pictures on social media. I thought she was really lucky, and I felt jealous about it. I wish I was her, but all I have was Brandon. He treated me well and he was nice to me, so that comforted me. Few months later I got pregnant, and we had to get married. We didn't have money for a big wedding, so we had a private wedding with close family and friends. Nancy was dating two rich married men at the time, and they were taking care of her, while me on the other hand was planning of being a mother and settling down with a husband. I was 25 at the time, so I thought what better time to settle down and have a family than now. Brandon was starting to make more money and we decided to move to North Carolina. Fast forward 3 years later, I was 28 years old at the time and was pregnant with my third baby. I was barely going to work because Brandon was making enough for me to work from home. I haven't seen Nancy in 2 years, and she came to visit me in North Carolina. When Nancy came to visit me, I was surprised on how she looked. She told me that she had been going through a lot because after 3 years the baseball player refuses to divorce his wife and marry her. She found out that he was also dating other women. She manages to expose him to his wife. Now the baseball player and his wife are now going through divorce, and she is taking him to the cleaners. I read that in the papers. When the baseball player found out that it was her that exposed him, he broke up with her. She said that she had been going to AA and on antidepressant medication for a year now. She had been really struggling and had no job. I told her that she is my bestie and should have come to me about it because I am in the position to help her. I know that we have grown distant because our path in life is going different direction. I told her that she could stay in my home as long as she likes, to nurse herself back up and to get her confidence back. I asked her about the other Wall Street guy she was dating, and she said that they broke up a long time ago. About 2 months and Nancy was still living with us. She wasn't looking for a job and didn't have the motivation to because she was used to men supporting her for almost 4 years now. Few months into Nancy staying with us, I noticed that Brandon was changing. He became less affectionate toward me and wasn't initiating intimacy as before. I thought there was something going on between Brandon and Nancy. After all, he had a crush on her before me. I didn't think my Brandon would ever leave me for her, but I needed proof to make sure my best friend didn't just betray me. I bought a camera and installed it in my living room. The following day I checked the camera, and to my horror I saw Brandon kissing Nancy. When I confronted Nancy, she apologized and asked for forgiveness. I told her that I want her out of my house, and she got mad, claiming that I stole Brandon from her, and she claimed that Brandon would come with her. I told her that she can have him, and I kicked Brandon out of the house as well. They both stay at the hotel for a few days before Brandon came back begging to let him in. I was pregnant at the time, and I have 2 of his kids. I needed him around because he is a good father and a good provider. It took me a while, but I took blame for allowing Nancy to stay in my house knowing that Brandon had a thing for her. I still love Brandon, so I forgave him because I thought I was partly to blame. I haven't spoken to Nancy since, and I don't know where she is. I still worry about her, and I feel like she never grew up from our college days.
If you graduated college within the past 20 years, at least in the US, you will know that colleges nowadays has become a huge orgy, especially most big colleges. Maybe it has always been that way, and social media haven't been invented back then, so now that it's invented, it exposes all that's going on in college. College is where most women in their late teens and early 20s rack up their body count. Women in college age and within their early 20s are very impressionable by their friends. It's not like they're not impressionable when they get older, but they're more susceptible to being influenced when they're in their teens and their early 20s. Even young women that are more on the conservative side and are not comfortable sleeping with multiple partners are peer pressured to do so. I have heard countless stories of women in college that weren't comfortable sleeping around with guys, but because their friends were doing it, they were pressured to join in and then regret it after. This phase is known as the party phase, but let's just call it the hoe phase. I know hoe phase is different from party phase because women can go through hoe phases at any time in their 20s or 30s. But if you can say the party phase is the hoe phase, the Urban Dictionary defines it as a phase in your life that occurs frequently when you are fine with exploring promiscuous activities and connecting with random people. According to some of the Red Pill content creator, the party phase is from 20 to about 27. Women's sexual market value peak at 23 years old, which is when they're supposed to find the right guy and cash in their chip and marry the best mate, which is what the original poster did. However, Nancy wasted her best years riding the cock carousel, chasing guys that are not attainable, like celebrities, married men, rich men, and etc. Nancy's life is best described as the life cycle of a modern-day Instagram model that thinks that she's going to be beautiful forever. At the end, it caught up to her. Now she's an alcoholic and an addict, looking for a man to settle down with. To make matters worse, she went as far as trying to steal her girlfriend's husband. For this type of women that are approaching the epiphany phase, those men that were ready to commit to her in her early 20s would bang her when she's in her 30s or even late 20s, but they would never commit to her, which is exactly what is going on.